Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Colonel, and to the team that's here today. I have two questions. My first question is around the alert system, Amber Alert, Silver Alert, and all the systems that are in place around missing persons here in the Commonwealth. Legislation was introduced last session around something called the Ebony Alert, which is an alert system that was passed in California around the fact that Black and brown girls mostly, and boys, but Black and brown girls between the ages of 12 to 24 don't get the media attention when they go missing near as much as others. And so looking at this system, it went through Children and Youth. We had conversations about it. One of the departments that was against it was the state police. So I'm just curious, with our alert systems, why there might be some pushback to it. Is it because of cost analysis, or just to get your take on it for a system that looks for missing children that are often overlooked as runaways to be implemented here in Pennsylvania?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I'm familiar with that legislative discussion. Before I turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Bivens, we haven't had an Amber Alert in the Commonwealth for I believe, close to 18 months. The last one that was activated happened to be a Black female, I'm told, juvenile. But if it doesn't meet the criteria for the Amber Alert, the MIPA Alert, the Missing Endangered Person Alert, is the catch-all for everybody else aside from a juvenile. So we kind of have we have a bifurcated system. There is data that shows, going back to the inception of the Amber Hagerman 1996 murder in Texas, which was the genesis of all Amber Alert, the concern with the system is to make sure that it is utilized properly with the criteria, because not to say that children on milk cartons are not a worthy effort, but that was always the colloquial term that was used, that you can desensitize the very population that you're going to rely upon as a force multiplier to bring the child home alive. So I'd turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Bivens to tell you the rest of, that functions under our Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and the people are highly trained criminal investigative analysts that look at that criteria, first to discern if it's an Amber, second to determine if it's a MIPA. We've had several hundred MIPAs, I might add, and we're not aware of any areas where we've had people come forward and tell us that MIPA was underutilized. There is a education component that I'll let Lieutenant Colonel.
Right, and before you start, I just want to say, what do you think is important in terms of the education? Because right now, I heard you talk about social media. Social media is the alert system, in my opinion. We see tons of people putting on, hey, my child's missing, look for this person. I had two that I shared this week. So, I think the purpose of these alert systems is because people are missing. Statistically, we know in our communities, this is something that goes on. Just to give everybody a statistic, most Black children that go missing, they're looked at as runaways first. And so we need to put an end to this notion of it. So what's the education that has to go out around that part?
So I would say in those areas where there is an underutilization, perhaps by a municipal agency, not casting an aspersion at any one, to avail them of the services that the MIPA can provide. And I turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Bivens to give you some additional.
And really that for us is the crux of it. We're not necessarily in favor of creating a dozen different types of alerts, because we've had proposals, for veteran alerts and the Ebony alerts and Silver alerts and on, all worthwhile and all well-intended. The issue for us is, rather than trying to educate law enforcement and the community in terms of making sure that they're reporting to law enforcement, and law enforcement that they're utilizing a service that's available, rather than try and educate them on the criteria for 8 or 10 or 12 different systems, we would rather focus on trying to educate them on the use of MEPA and encourage it so that that system can be fully utilized. To the extent that if there's a community that you believe is not utilizing that, we'd be happy to work with you and take a look at whether it's the law enforcement piece that we need to work with. And we can certainly work through MOPEC to get additional information out to local departments make sure that they fully understand how it works and how to activate that system. We try to make it as easy as possible. We have people available that take that call 24/7 and are highly trained and quickly analyzing a situation, both to determine whether it's an amber or meets the criteria for the MIPA, and then working with those agencies as we go forward. So I really see it as the Colonel said, as an educational issue in making sure that those reports go to the police and the police fully bring those to us for consideration.
Okay, we'd love to have more conversation with you about it, because I think there's a lot more around it than just, hey, this hasn't been utilized or put into action, because it's going on the streets. So we need to be able to have a system that really pays attention to those things, and I think education is a big part of it. Thank you.